The Surcouf was a product of bold thinking, technological experimentation, and the interwar naval treaties that shaped European fleets. Laid down in the late 1920s and commissioned in 1934, she was enormous, at over 3,300 tons surfaced and more than 4,000 tons submerged. She was the largest submarine of her era. Her length stretched nearly 110 meters, longer than many contemporary destroyers, and her beam approached 10 meters. Surcouf was armed to an extraordinary degree for a submarine. She carried two 203mm, 8-inch, naval guns in a twin turret forward, a caliber typically reserved for heavy cruisers. These guns could engage enemy merchant ships or lightly defended warships while surfaced, a capability unparalleled in other submarines. Additionally, she carried 6 torpedo tubes, a formidable secondary armament, and anti-aircraft weapons to protect against aerial threats. A unique and daring feature of Surcouf was her onboard seaplane, stored in a watertight hangar and designed for reconnaissance. She could launch the aircraft via a catapult while surfaced, a capability that allowed her to scout distant waters without exposing herself directly. The ambition was clear: she could act as a solitary raider, a combination of submarine, cruiser, and reconnaissance ship all in one. Yet, such ambition carried compromise. Her size and weight made her slower to dive than typical submarines, and her enormous turreted guns added top weight that challenged stability. Crew accommodations were generous by submarine standards, but operating a vessel of such complexity required highly trained personnel, disciplined coordination, and constant maintenance. Surcouf's design reflected the duality of her mission. She was expected to operate alone or in small groups, relying on stealth to approach her targets, but with the ability to fight like a surface warship if necessary. Her large-caliber guns, typically reserved for surface engagements, were capable of sinking merchant ships at range, allowing her to conserve torpedoes for more valuable targets. Her seaplane hangar, located aft, was both a marvel and a challenge. The aircraft could be deployed for scouting, but doing so required calm seas and careful handling. Maintenance of the catapult and aircraft systems consumed considerable effort from the crew, and rough weather could render the plane useless. Nevertheless, in theory, this combination allowed Surcouf to locate convoys far from her own position and strike with surprise, an idea reminiscent of surface commerce raiders of the First World War. Life aboard the submarine was unique. With a crew complement of approximately 120 men, Surcouf offered more spacious quarters than most submarines, yet the vessel's size meant that coordination was essential. Crew members had to operate the massive turret, manage the seaplane, maintain the engines, and handle communications, all while keeping the submarine submerged or ready to surface at a moment's notice. In speed trials, she reached impressive speeds of over 18 knots submerged and slightly higher on the surface. Her large guns were tested extensively, demonstrating their ability to hit distant targets, while the seaplane hangar and catapult were refined for operational readiness. During the mid-1930s, Surcouf also served as a training vessel, familiarizing her crew with the unique demands of operating such an unusual submarine. She attracted attention from other navies, who regarded her as an exotic and potentially game-changing design. Despite the attention, some naval experts questioned her practicality. Her enormous size limited her maneuverability underwater, and her role as a hybrid cruiser submarine was difficult to justify against smaller, faster, and more agile submarines optimized for stealth. Yet the French Navy persisted, seeing in Surcouf a vessel that embodied national pride, technological innovation, and the daring spirit of her namesake. When Germany invaded Poland in September 1939, Surcouf was already in service and prepared for wartime operations. She was assigned to the Atlantic Fleet, tasked with commerce raiding and patrolling shipping lanes in the Caribbean and South Atlantic. Her enormous size allowed her to carry provisions for extended patrols, and her seaplane gave her eyes far beyond her own periscope range. Early missions included reconnaissance patrols near French colonies in the Caribbean and support of convoy operations. While her enormous guns were never used in combat during these early patrols, the presence of a submarine capable of such firepower was a psychological tool against enemy merchant shipping. The fall of France in June 1940 created a crisis for Surcouf and her crew. The armistice divided the French fleet, some ships came under Vichy control, others joined the Free French forces, and still others faced internment. Surcouf, at the time stationed in the Caribbean, faced uncertainty. Her crew remained loyal to France, but the definition of France had changed overnight. Efforts were made to bring Surcouf under Free French control, but political and operational considerations limited her immediate deployment. Her size and potential made her a prize that both Allied and Axis forces eyed carefully. Strategic planners debated how to employ her, given that a submarine of her dimensions required long-range operations and could not be easily hidden or deployed in shallow waters. Despite these challenges, Surcouf undertook patrols in the Caribbean and South Atlantic. She shadowed shipping routes, reporting movements and tracking potential targets. She never engaged in a surface action against large warships, but she did conduct several reconnaissance missions and participated in convoy escort duties, taking advantage of her seaplane to scout for threats. Her very existence forced Axis planners to allocate resources to avoid her, proving that even without sinking enemy tonnage, Surcouf influenced operations. She represented both innovation and caution, a vessel capable of striking fear, yet requiring careful handling and planning to maximize her potential. By 1942, Surcouf had joined the Allied cause, operating primarily in the Atlantic and Caribbean under the Free French banner. Her enormous size, which had been both a marvel and a limitation, now allowed her to conduct long-range patrols that smaller submarines could not sustain. She could remain at sea for weeks, tracking enemy shipping and reporting on movements, acting as both hunter and scout. Surcouf's missions were often solitary. Unlike other submarines that relied on wolfpack tactics or coordinated attacks, she was expected to operate independently, relying on her speed, endurance, and the threat posed by her 8-inch guns. While Surcouf engaged in few direct combat actions, she did encounter danger. The Atlantic was heavily patrolled by German U-boats and aircraft, and Allied convoys were themselves under constant threat from Axis forces. Surcouf's crew maintained vigilance at all times, diving to avoid enemy patrols, or surfacing to scan vast stretches of ocean using her seaplane. Every sortie tested the crew's skill and endurance, reinforcing the unique combination of surface and underwater warfare that Surcouf embodied. Surcouf's combat record, though not filled with dramatic surface battles, included several noteworthy actions. In 1942, she conducted reconnaissance in the Caribbean, reporting on Axis supply lines and shadowing convoys. Her intelligence was valuable to the Allies, enabling ships to be redirected or protected before enemy raiders could strike. In one instance, her seaplane provided early warning of approaching German submarines, allowing an Allied convoy to adjust its course and avoid potential disaster. While she never fired her 8-inch guns in anger against an enemy warship, her existence alone altered the strategic calculus of the Atlantic and Caribbean theaters. Her patrols also demonstrated the limitations of hybrid design. The enormous guns, while impressive, were impractical in the confined and unpredictable conditions of submarine warfare. Maintenance of her systems required constant diligence, and the complex interplay between surface reconnaissance, gunnery, and underwater navigation demanded a disciplined crew. Surcouf was a vessel that relied as much on human skill as on engineering innovation. The most enduring and tragic chapter of Surcouf's story was her disappearance. On the 2nd of February, 1942, while returning to base in the Panama Canal Zone after a patrol, she vanished without a trace. The exact circumstances remain unclear, and historians have debated several theories. Some accounts suggest she may have struck a mine, while others propose a collision with an Allied ship in poor visibility. A third possibility points to mechanical failure or operational error exacerbated by her unique design. What is certain is that all 130 crew members were lost, making Surcouf's disappearance one of the most mysterious and somber events of World War II submarine operations. Her loss was deeply felt in the Free French forces and among Allied naval planners. Surcouf was a symbol of French ingenuity, independence, and daring. The disappearance underscored both the potential and the peril inherent in operating a submarine unlike any other. Despite her mysterious end, Surcouf left an indelible mark on naval history. She demonstrated the possibilities and limitations of hybrid submarine design, influencing post-war thinking. While future submarines would not carry cruiser-sized guns, they would adopt innovations in range, endurance, and onboard reconnaissance systems that Surcouf had pioneered. The French Navy remembered her with pride. Surcouf was celebrated in wartime propaganda and post-war accounts as a vessel that had dared to be different, combining courage, technology, and ambition in a single hull. She represented a philosophy that warships could embody multiple roles, and that innovation sometimes came with extraordinary risk. Her story also inspired fiction, literature, and naval enthusiasts worldwide, who marveled at the audacity of a submarine large enough to carry 8-inch guns and a seaplane. She remains a symbol of France's maritime ambition during the interwar period and a reminder of the dangers faced by those who sailed beneath the waves. The men who served aboard Surcouf were as remarkable as the vessel itself. Operating a submarine of such size and complexity required constant coordination and discipline. Crew members faced not only the dangers of the sea but also the technical challenges of managing large-caliber guns, a seaplane, and a vessel whose sheer size made it less agile than smaller submarines. Life aboard Surcouf was a balance between routine and extreme vigilance. Patrols could last weeks, requiring precise navigation, constant engine management, and readiness for sudden combat. Crew morale was supported by the spacious accommodations relative to typical submarines, but the knowledge that any error could result in disaster kept tension high. The loss of the Surcouf meant the loss of more than just a vessel, it was the loss of an entire crew, men whose training, courage, and loyalty made the submarine operationally viable. Their sacrifice remains part of the broader story of submarine warfare during World War II. Surcouf was the largest submarine in the world at the time. She challenged conventional naval thinking by combining heavy surface armament, long-range endurance, and reconnaissance capability in a single vessel. Comparisons were often drawn with both surface raiders and other submarines, yet Surcouf occupied a unique niche, a strategic experiment that was, in practice, unmatched by any other nation's fleet. Her design highlighted the innovation and ambition of interwar French naval engineers. While the political and economic constraints of the era limited the ability to produce multiple vessels of this type, Surcouf's creation demonstrated the ingenuity and vision of France's naval leadership. She symbolized a willingness to take risks, to explore uncharted ideas, and to stand out in a world of conventional ships. From the gun decks to the bridge, every story we tell honors those who served. If this tale made you feel the salt and steel of history, give it a like, and if you're not yet part of our channel's convoy, subscribe and join the ranks. More powerful stories await.